Hi, well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our first session for PPA 500, and also welcome to the MPA program if you are new to the program. I know several folks are starting this semester, and since this is the first day of spring term and it's 4 o'clock, that's probably your first class that you're in, so welcome to the program. We're happy to have you here in the program, and I hope that you enjoy your time in the classes you'll be taking in the program. My name is Dr. Powell, and I'm the instructor for this course. I thought what we would do tonight is to just kind of get started, go through the syllabus, talk about the course requirements. I'll show you our Canvas site if you haven't taken a look at that yet, and kind of show you the resources on the Canvas site and where to locate those resources. Talk to you a little bit about the introduction to the MPA program, reiterate some of the information that you probably heard at the orientation and add on a few extra bits of information for you. Talk about the mission of the program, talk about the public service values of the program, and then really emphasize for you the importance of NASPA accreditation and what it means to get your MPA degree from a NASPA accredited program. So that's all I really have on the agenda for tonight. So I don't think this will be a full session tonight, but we'll see how we progress. The whole goal of tonight's session is just to kind of introduce you to the course and to the program and make sure that we're all on the same page with the requirements for the course. So, as you probably already noticed, the session is being recorded. So, I record each of our weekly sessions, and then I will provide a link to that recording by tomorrow morning on our Canvas site. So, if you need to review any of this information we cover on Tuesday evening, you'll have the recording there available to you for the duration of the entire course. You can go back and review that information. If for some reason you're unable to attend one of our Tuesday sessions, then once again, you will have access to the recording to go back and watch it at a later date. So everything is being recorded. As such, since we only have two sections of 500 offered by the department this semester, and both of those sections, tonight's section, and then there's another section, another class that meets on Thursday nights. Since we only have two sections being offered and they're both being offered online, the university policy says that you are not required to have your camera on. So camera use, I'll leave completely up to you and whatever you are comfortable with. If you prefer having your camera on, that's fine. If you prefer not to have your camera on, that is fine as well. As we go through our class sessions every Tuesday evening, you have a couple of different ways in which you can participate in the class sessions. One way is by using your microphone. And so if you would like to contribute verbally, just raise your hand and then I will call on you and you can use your microphone. Or what a lot of other people prefer is using text chat. So if you have a comment, if you have an observation, but you don't really want to break the flow of class, text chat is a great way to do that. I will have the text chat box open throughout the entire session. As I talk, I'll be monitoring text chat. So if you have any questions, you can feel free to put those in text chat, and I will then respond to those as they pop up. So that's kind of our agenda for this evening. So let's go ahead. Hopefully you're able to see the syllabus. I put the syllabus up on our Canvas site a couple of months ago, made a couple of small changes to it. But for the most part, it's the same syllabus that's been up there for the past couple of months. If you've accessed the Canvas site, you've probably already taken a look at the syllabus. But I still think it's useful for us as we're all together here on our first night of class to go through the syllabus so we understand why we are here, what we are doing, and why we're doing the assignments that we are doing. So this is PPA 500, section number 1. This is Foundations of Public Policy and Administration. So most likely this is the first course that you are taking here in the MPA program. Granted, you may have another course or two courses along with this one this semester, but this really is your very first course in the program, and it's designed to be an introduction to the MPA program. So there are no prerequisites for this class. There's no prior knowledge or learning expected as you come into this class. Our primary goal in this course is to introduce you to the study and the practice of public administration, since we are an MPA program, and then also to introduce you to the substance of the MPA program as well, some of the courses that you'll be taking later on during your time in the program. So we are very much a survey-oriented introductory foundations type of course. So the assignments and expectations in this course will probably be a little bit different than some of the more advanced courses you'll be taking in the program. Here we try and keep the reading load as light as possible. We try and keep the assignment load as light as possible as well, because we are very much just an introduction into the MPA program. So let's go through the syllabus and talk about all the salient elements of the class. And again, if you have a question as we go through the syllabus, feel free to go ahead and put it in text chat. I'll be monitoring that and happy to answer any questions that you have. So hopefully by the time we're done talking about the syllabus, everyone will have a very clear idea of what you'll be expected to do over the next 8 weeks. Now, I say 8 weeks because, as I'm sure you're probably well aware, this course is a hybrid course. It only meets for the first half of the semester. What that means is that we take an accelerated approach to material, but we do not cut information out. So you'll cover the same information that you would have covered if this was a semester-long course. So we just kind of accelerate things, and we accelerate things in terms of having not only our synchronous Zoom session meetings once per week, but also combining that with asynchronous discussion board assignments that you'll be doing on a weekly basis as well. So we have both the synchronous as well as the asynchronous components. You are only required to be here in Zoom on Tuesday evenings at 4 o'clock, beginning tonight and running through March the 3rd. Now, if we cover all of our material in our Tuesday sessions through March the 3rd, and we're all done with the material by the end of class on March the 3rd, then the following Tuesday, March the 10th, we'll be able to just use that to afford you time to complete your final assessment. So you will not have to actually be here in Zoom on March the 10th. Now, that's the ideal situation. That's if everything goes the way in which we hope it goes in terms of getting through our information, but we'll kind of see how we progress. So once you get to turning in your final assessment on March the 10th, once that final assessment is then submitted, you are then done with this class. And so you don't have to worry about it for the rest of the semester. If you have a second half hybrid course that you're taking, then that course will begin the following week and you can take that course. But this course will be done as of March the 10th. We put these hybrid courses into the curriculum a long time ago. We've been doing this for 18 years now. I developed this hybrid approach along with another faculty member who is long since retired, but we did it back in 2007, and we did it with only 2 courses. And now this hybrid approach has become so popular and demand has been so high for hybrid courses that we have converted a lot of our other courses into this hybrid variety as well. So you'll see a lot of our courses in the program being either first half or second half hybrid. So it's a very common, very popular approach. As I told you, my name is Dr. Powell. I've been here at Cal State Long Beach for 25 years. This is my 25th year here on faculty. I was department chair for about 11 years. I still serve as the director of the distance learning program. Been doing that since 2005, so this is my 20th year doing that. Before I came here to Cal State Long Beach, I taught at universities in Florida as well as Illinois for 5 years. So overall, this is my 30th year teaching full-time in a public administration program. So been doing it a lot, been doing it for a long time. This course, this 500 course, is a course I teach every single semester. I started teaching this course back when I became department chair over a decade ago because I thought it was probably a good idea to have the department chair and program director teaching the first course. And so that's why I put myself into this course, and I've been teaching it ever since. You know our meeting times because you are here. So we meet at 4 p.m. every Tuesday through March the 3rd. These meetings are all through Zoom. Obviously, you know how to access them because you are here. I only use one link for all of our sessions, so you don't have to worry about a different link for each Tuesday. It's only one link that will get you into each Tuesday session. I have my contact information there at the top of the syllabus. My office is in SSPA 232. And if you've been on campus, you know where the SSPA building is. We're up on the second floor. The faculty offices for public administration are the even numbered offices, political sciences on the other hallway, and the odd number offices. That being said, all the courses that I am teaching this semester are all online courses. And so the university policy says that office hours should follow the modality of the courses being taught. So since my courses are all online, my office hours are also online this semester. I just have there just officially Tuesdays, 2 to 4 p.m. for office hours. Really, all you need to do is if you need to talk to me, send me an email. Most questions can be answered via email. If it's something that cannot be taken care of through email, let me know and we can set up a Zoom meeting and we can meet via Zoom. I'm much more flexible than just Tuesday from 2 to 4. Those are just my official office hours to be in accordance with syllabus policy. My phone number and my email address are also listed on the syllabus. My recommendation is do not use my phone number. Do not call me because recently the university removed the phones from instructor offices as a cost-saving mechanism. So I actually don't even have a phone on my office desk anymore. Best way to contact me is via email. I have all my emails pushed to my phone, and so whenever your email comes through, it'll pop up on my phone, and you'll get a response well within 24 hours. Usually you get a response within a couple of hours, unless it's like 3 in the morning. But email is by far the best way to contact me if necessary. I already told you what our meeting dates are, running from tonight through March the 3rd, if everything goes well. So that's all the contact information. That's a little bit about me. Now a little bit about the course. As I said, this is an introductory survey-oriented course, and so our primary goal is to introduce you to the major theories and the ideas and the principles of public administration. Now, as you know, because you are in this program, we are a public administration program. We are truly an MPA program. There are two different types of graduate public affairs programs. There are MPA programs, Masters of Public Administration, and then there are MPP programs, which are Masters of Public Policy. We are a Masters of Public Administration, which means that our core curriculum really does focus on the specific skills that you need to be effective leaders and managers in public and nonprofit organizations. So our focus is really very much on those hard leadership types of skills. So we will have 1 week in this class, we'll talk about public budgeting and finance. We will talk in another week about managing human resources, another week managing fiscal resources, another week looking at how we lead and manage organizations, how we evaluate public programs. So very much a skills-based type of graduate curriculum. Jason asked questions, is a public policy more research focused? Typically, yes. A master's of public policy will be much more focused on research, whereas a master's of public administration will be much more focused on application of skills. We will spend time in this class, especially next week, talking about the basics of American government. And that is something that we added to this 500 course about 5 or 6 years ago. Because we came to the realization that we have a lot of people coming into the MPA program from a variety of different academic backgrounds. I did a study a few years ago looking at where students come from when they come into our MPA program. And what I found is the majority of our students in our program were not political science majors. A plurality were, but a majority were not. And so we have people coming in this program from natural sciences. We have people coming from engineering, from sociology, from psychology, from criminal justice, from health administration. And so since we have people coming from such a variety of backgrounds, we really want to make sure that in this 500 course, everyone gets a good refresher on American government. American political culture, American political institutions, and what those institutions then mean for the practice and study of public administration. So you'll notice as we go through our schedule, next week in the second half of class, we'll devote the entire second half of class next week to looking at the principles and institutions of American government. So that edition of American government is kind of a relatively newer focus in this 500 course. I have some course objectives there listed for you on the syllabus. I'll let you read through those on your own. The nature of the course, as I said, we're a first half hybrid course, so we only meet for the first half of the semester. We will spend most of our time introducing you to the field of public administration. The rest of the time, we will spend introducing you to the different core topics that you will be studying throughout the core curriculum in the MPA program. Required textbooks, there are two of them for this course. There's Don Kettle's Politics of the Administrative Process, and then there's Shafritz and Hyde. I believe there's another author there as well. The Classics of Public Administration. The difference between those two textbooks, the Don Kettle textbook is what we would consider our primary textbook for the course. The classics textbook is actually a compilation of classical readings in the field of public administration. And the reason why I assign that to you is so that you can have some firsthand exposure to some of the writings by people like Max Weber and Frederick Taylor and some of these other people who really created the basis and the foundation for public administration. So you can actually read those articles on your own, form your own opinions about those articles rather than just listening to me talk about them. So those are our two textbooks. As again, you are probably aware of by now, Cal State Long Beach uses this program known as D1DA, which stands for Day One Digital Access, which means that the university provides for you digital copies of your required textbooks, and the link is in our Canvas site, and I'll show you where you get that in a minute. But those digital textbooks are already provided for you. The university then charges a fee to your account for access to those digital materials. But it allows everyone in the course to have access to those materials from the very first day of class. It's called D1DA. You are not required to participate in D1DA, but if you do want to opt out of it, you have to opt out of it no later than February 3rd at 11:59 p.m. So if you want to go out there and get the books on your own, you are certainly welcome to do that. But if you're going to do that, make sure that you opt out of D1DA. Click that link to opt out in the Canvas site no later than 11:59 p.m. on February 3rd. If you miss that deadline, then the charge will go on your account. The charge will then stay on your account. And so they're D1DA, they're very easy to work with, but they're also sticklers on that February 3rd deadline. There are no websites other than our Canvas site where assignments need to be completed. So there are no assignments out of either of the textbooks that you're going to have to do. The textbooks are just there for reading. And so you don't have to worry about that. All the assignments are provided to you directly on our Canvas site. So it's completely up to you whether or not you would like to use D1DA or not. Just keep that February 3rd deadline in mind. So those are the textbooks we'll be using for the class. I will point out to you, if you decide not to use D1DA and you're going to go out and get the Kettle textbook on your own, there is an older version of the Kettle textbook. I believe it's a 2021, if I'm not mistaken, publication date. The older version and the current version are almost identical, except for the newer version has an extra chapter in it on post-COVID public administration. And so it's been able to update after the COVID-19 pandemic. We really don't focus a lot on that chapter. We'll talk a bit about throughout the course of what COVID-19 has meant for public administration, how we practice it. I really don't assign that chapter to you in the textbook. So I think you're equally fine regardless of which version you're using. Either the current one or the previous one will certainly serve your needs. So I leave that completely up to you. The evaluation criteria, what we will be doing in our very short half a semester together. You see, I've listed there for you the different assignments that you will be completing. So let's go through each of those assignments. I'll walk you through them, talk to you what they're about, and what we're kind of looking to accomplish with each one of those assignments. Let me move a couple of things around here. So your first assignment is this initial skills self-assessment worth 5 points. The initial skills self-assessment, and I have it appended here at the back of the syllabus. So let me just scroll down to the bottom of the syllabus. And this is the initial skills self-assessment. This is part of our student learning outcomes assessment system that we put in place way back in fall of 2007. And my first term as chair, I was at a NASPA conference. I was sitting in a panel at NASPA conference, and I was listening to people bemoan the fact that they have no way to assess the learning outcomes for their students. And so in that 2 hour panel, I sat there and kind of sketched out an assessment plan, brought it back to campus, worked with our full-time faculty on it, and ended up getting it kind of crystallized into an assessment system that we put in place now 18 years ago. One of the major elements of this assessment system is this initial skills self-assessment. This initial skills self-assessment, as you can see, is comprised of three different parts. The first part of the skills self-assessment is a very simple ordinal ranking of how much you feel you already know about these different core skills in the public administration program. So budgeting and financial management, how much you feel you already know about budgeting and financial management. So you'll just be selecting one of those ordinal rankings from a 1, which means you feel you know really nothing about public budgeting and finance, up to a high of a score of 5 if you feel you know a great deal about public budgeting and finance. I'll give you an example. I had a student in the distance learning program way back in cohort number 5, which is 20 years ago, who came into the program, and he was a budget analyst for Metro. And his job was to manage a capital budget. So he managed all the capital projects for Metro. We're talking about hundreds upon hundreds of millions of dollars in capital projects. He had a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge in budgeting. He was clearly a 5 out of 5 on that scale. Someone else can come into this class and they could have no experience in public budgeting, and the only experience they have in finance is just balancing their personal finances. That would be down around a score of a 1. So just kind of give you an idea of how you should score yourself from 1 to 5. And you'll be doing that on each one of these different skill areas: budgeting, decision making, ethics, oral communication, so on and so on. So it shouldn't take you very long to fill out part 1. And be as honest as you can. There are no right answers to this. This is truly an honest self-assessment. Allows you the opportunity to assess your skills as you are entering into the MPA program. Then in part 2, we break it down to the 5 main core courses of public budgeting, HR, org theory, policy analysis, and research methods. For each one of these 5 areas, we are asking that you provide us with a little information about your experience and or skills in each one of those areas. So we're just looking here for a couple of sentences. If you have absolutely no experience in public sector public budgeting, then by all means just say, I have no experience in public budgeting. And that is an acceptable answer. Because again, there are no right or wrong answers here, just an honest assessment of your skills. Then in part 3, it's a little bit more wide open. Here we're looking for about a paragraph where you just tell us your reasons for pursuing the MPA degree and what specific skills you hope to obtain, you hope to acquire in the MPA program. So again, just a paragraph about why you are here and what you are hoping to get out of the program. Since this is truly just a self-assessment with no right or wrong answers, it is graded on a credit, no credit basis. So you turn it in, you get 5 out of 5 points. It'll be the easiest 5 points you will probably ever earn in this MPA program. So that we're calling the initial skills self-assessment. Then when you get to the end of your program, and you are taking 697 and you're completing your 5 capstone case studies, Once you've completed those five capstone case studies in 697, then you will redo this initial skill self-assessment in what we call the final skill self-assessment. So again, these are just bookends. So you can assess your skills as you come into the program with the initial skills self-assessment, and then as you leave the program, you'll be reassessing your skills based upon everything you've hopefully learned in your time in the MPA program. So this initial skill self-assessment is the first assignment in the class worth 5 points on a credit, no credit type of basis. Any questions on the initial skill self-assessments?
I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
Is the first initial skills of self-assessment, is that posted or is this just done on paper?
It is posted. So what I have
Okay.
on our Canvas side is I have a link there, and I also have the file appended, so you can just download that file and just complete it right into the file and then upload it.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Then a
Hi,
second is,
Professor.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I had a question too. I don't know if I missed it, but when did you say the initial skills assessment? When was that due? Is that at the end of this course or is that our first due assignment?
That's your first graded assignment for this course, and so that is due in two. I think we have it due in 2 weeks.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
Mhm. Then a second assignment you have is what we're calling this draft advancement to candidacy form. If you attended the orientation, I'm not sure who led the orientation, if it was Dr. Butts or Dr. Zhao, but whomever led the orientation probably talked to you about advancement to candidacy. So whenever you are admitted into a graduate program here at Cal State Long Beach, you need to complete an advancement to candidacy form. That advancement to candidacy form is essentially your program of study. So this is where on this form you'll list all the courses that you plan on taking in your course of study in the MPA program. Now, to actually advance to candidacy, you have to have already completed 6 units in the program. So you are not eligible to advance to candidacy in your first semester. You must first complete 2 courses with a cumulative grade point average of at least a 3.0 before you are allowed to officially submit your advancement form. But what we do here in this class is we complete a draft form where it allows you the opportunity to fill out a draft version of your advancement form, submit it to me. I will be able to look through your courses and your course sequencing and then provide you with some feedback so that once you have completed this course and another course in the program, you've got 6 units done. By your next semester, you can then officially advance the candidacy. So this is just to prepare you for that official advancement. But to reiterate, you are not advancing candidacy in this course. You're not allowed to. This is just a draft form that gives you the opportunity to get my feedback on the sequencing of your courses. So again, on our Canvas site, I've got a link to the departmental website. If you follow that link, you'll see we have all the different advancement forms listed there. The advancement form that you will want to use is the one that corresponds with the option you're in here in the MPA program. The MPA program has 3 different options. And when you apply to the MPA program, you selected one of 3 options. The most popular option, and the option that I think most people are in, is the general MPA. That's the first option. Some people, when they apply to the program, apply to the MPA with the option in urban affairs. Some people applied for the option in public works. So it really depends what option you are in. But the one that most people will be using will be this advancement form for the general option in public administration. So hopefully you can see on your screen. If you can't, let me know. But this is the advancement form that you'll be filling out as a draft to submit for the draft advancement to candidacy assignment. Now, you don't have all the information yet to fill out this entire form, and I understand that. This is just a draft to give me an idea of what courses you plan on taking and when you plan on taking those courses. So here's the form. It's a fillable form. All you need to do, your name, campus ID, email, address. Your admit term, I think for the vast majority of people, that is spring of 2026. Your advancement term will be the term in which you're actually officially going to advance to candidacy. So if you are registered for 6 units or more this semester, then you'll probably be advancing next fall because you'll have your 6 units done by the beginning of next fall. So your advancement term, I think, for the vast majority of people will be fall of 2026. If, however, you're only taking one class this spring semester and not taking anything in the summer, then you're not going to be able to advance until next spring because you're going to have those 6 units done before you officially advance. So the advancement term, I think, for most people will be fall of 2026. Before you can officially advance to candidacy, you have to meet what's called the graduate writing assessment requirement. Now, basically, if you graduated from a regionally accredited university, which if you didn't, you probably wouldn't be in this program, you have probably already met the graduate writing assessment requirement. And if for some reason you haven't met that yet, Enrollment Services will let you know that. But I think everyone has probably already met that requirement. So you can just go ahead and check the met box. You have to have a minimum GPA of 3.0 and all graduate coursework completed. Obviously, we're not there yet, so you can't put a GPA in there because you probably don't have one. Successful completion of 6 units in the MPA program. If this is your first semester, you have not completed 6 units, so just leave that blank. And then finally, you have to complete an orientation requirement. If you attended the program's orientation, then just put the date of that orientation in that box. If you were unable to attend the orientation, no worries. We are going to cover that information tonight. So if you didn't attend the orientation, consider tonight's session to be your orientation. So you can put today's date, January 20th, 2026, as the date of your orientation requirement completion. Question and text: if you took 3 units last semester, your midterm would be spring of 2016. No, if you took 3 units last semester, then your midterm would have been last semester. So your midterm is whenever you were admitted to the program and started coursework. So if you took courses in fall of 2025, that would then be your admit term. So the most important thing about this draft form is that you are going to schedule the course, or at least not schedule, but you're going to tell me what courses you are taking and when you are taking those courses. So you'll see here in this next box all of our core courses in the program. Obviously, PPA 500, you're taking this semester in spring 2026. You clearly don't have a grade for it, so just leave that blank. And then you'll tell me what semester you plan on taking all the other core courses: budgeting, HR, org theory, policy, research methods. And then, as you know from the orientation, your culminating requirement of the program is you have to complete 2 sections of PPA 697 directed research. And in those 2 sections, what you'll be doing is completing 5 culminating case studies, your final skills self-assessment, and then submitting your student learning portfolio. Now, one thing to be aware of as you are filling out the semesters in which you plan on taking these courses is the requirement that all of your core courses must be complete before you register for 697. So make sure that the semesters in which you plan on registering for 697 are all after the semesters you list for all your other core courses. Now, the semesters in which you take those other core courses, that's completely up to you. So if you want to do policy analysis before you do budgeting, that's fine. That doesn't matter. It's just that all the core courses will be completed before you register for directed research. So let's keep that in mind as you are scheduling out the courses. Then, in addition to those core courses, you are then required to complete 5 elective courses. And we'll talk more about this in our program introduction, but those 5 elective courses typically are from within the Graduate Center for Public Policy Administration within our department. You do have the ability to select courses outside the department to use as an elective, but if you're planning on using courses outside the department as an elective, that's something you'll need to clear with either Dr. Butts as our department chair or Dr. Zhao as our graduate advisor. Clear it with them first, because there are some departments on campus that are impacted. And so their courses are only offered to their students. So you'll have to be very careful in terms of which department you're able to take courses in outside the department. That's why you should probably clear any courses from outside the department with Dr. Butts or Dr. Zhao. But here just lists me the 5 electives that you plan on taking and the semester in which you plan on taking those courses. Now, this is a draft form. So obviously this can change. And so you're not locking yourself into anything. You're just getting my feedback on this draft form so that when you are ready to officially advance, you'll be ready to go. Then you'll see the box below that is the internship requirement. So there is an internship requirement in our program for students that do not have at least 1 year of administrative experience. Now, that idea of administrative experience is relatively flexible. If you are working in a public agency or a nonprofit agency and you've been working in an agency for over a year, then you have satisfied the internship requirement. So you can just check the waiver box and then list wherever you are employed. If you've been employed in the past in a full-time administrative position in a public or nonprofit organization, that counts to waive the internship as well. So check the box and then list where you worked in the past. The vast majority of the people in the program are able to waive the internship because they have that 1 year of experience. However, if you do not have 1 year of administrative experience, then you will need to complete an internship as part of the program. So what you'll need to do here is just click the PPA 585 internship box. PPA 585 is the internship course that you'll be enrolled in as you complete your internship in the program. If you are required to complete the internship, my recommendation is that you talk to Dr. Butts no later than next semester and let him know that you're going to need an internship. He has worked out a lot of really great articulation agreements with local governments and nonprofits in the area. I know La Palma has one, Seal Beach has one, I believe Huntington Beach has another. And so we have these articulation agreements where you can get placed into an internship and fulfill that internship requirement. Kimberly, the requirement is for full-time work. And so 1 year of full-time administrative experience. Now, if you have multiple years of part-time experience, then that could count for 1 full year. So if you have 2 years of part-time experience, so the hours would add up to 1 year of full-time experience, then that would be enough to suffice to waive the internship. The ultimate decision about whether or not the internship gets waived comes from Dr. Butts. He serves as department chair and doubles as internship coordinator. We don't have a separate internship coordinator position, at least we haven't for the past decade and a half. And so it's kind of 2 hats that the department chair tends to wear. So if you have any questions about whether or not you need the internship, Dr. Butts is the person that you will need to contact. But in that box, it's either saying you're going to waive your internship or that you have to take PPA 585. If you do have to take PPA 585 and complete an internship, do note that the 3 units associated with PPA 585 are in addition to the 39 units required for the degree. NASPA, our accrediting body, does not allow us to double count internship credits for credits toward the degree. So instead of 39 units, you would then have to complete 42 units with those additional 3 units of PPA 585. However, Dr. Butts has become very good and very creative at being able to find people internships without having to register for 585. In the past, we've had so few people who've needed internships that we would have maybe 1 person in PPA 585 each semester, and the university, for cost-saving purposes, would come to us and say, you can't have a course with 1 person in it. And so we've kind of found ways to work around you having to take those additional 3 units. Dr. Butts is, again, the person to talk to cover that information. But that's basically the draft advancement form. You'll just complete that, submit it on our Canvas site. I will then provide you with feedback in terms of your course sequencing. I can also provide you with the feedback in terms of the electives, how often those electives tend to be offered. Some electives are offered pretty much every single semester. Electives such as leadership tend to be offered every single semester. Other electives, such as intergovernmental relations, are offered only in the summer. So it really depends upon the elective, the demand for it, and how often it is being offered. But that's information and insight I can give you as I review your draft advancement form. So that's a draft advancement to candidacy form worth 5 points. Again, it's essentially a credit, no credit. You turn it in, you get the 5 points. I will give you feedback in terms of your course sequencing so that you'll then be ready to go ahead and advance the candidacy once you are eligible after completing 6 units in the program. So when you add up the initial skill self-assessment and the draft advancement candidacy, that's 10 points right there. There's pretty much a gimme 10 points. Once we get beyond that, though, then we get a little bit more careful in terms of the awarding of points. So in addition to those assignments, you then have what we call a midterm and a final assessment. These are intentionally called assessments and not examinations. So these are not timed examinations. These are open book assessments. I already have the assessments ready to go. I will make them available on our Canvas site at least 2 weeks before they are due. So they'll pop up as available 2 weeks before they'll due. And then once I make them available in class that evening, I will go through them and I will show you all the different scenarios in the assessment and give you an idea of what I'm looking for. But just for our purposes now, each assessment is an assessment because it's scenario based. So what I will do is provide you with 5 public sector scenarios that are meant to be realistic scenarios in the public or nonprofit sectors. The scenarios will be relatively brief. They'll be about a paragraph or so long. Will give you the information that you need in order to answer the questions without inundating you with a lot of superfluous details. So I'll give you a scenario, and then after that scenario, you'll then have 2 questions. Those questions will then require that you take the information that you have learned in the course and apply that information appropriately to those scenarios. This is, again, an application type of assignment because we are an MPA program, and as an MPA program, we are a professional program. So it's important for us in this program to always find that nexus between practice and theory. So we'll cover a lot of theories in this class. The assessment will then require that you take those theories and decide which theories fit most appropriately in which scenario. This is not meant to be a research assignment, and so you don't have to do any outside research for these answers. You'll just be basing your answers on what you have learned in the class because they are very much assessments. You also don't have to be very lengthy in your answers. Typically, the answers to questions are usually about a paragraph long. So you can have 5 scenarios, 2 questions for each scenario. Each answer to a question should be about a paragraph or so. And that should be enough to suffice in order to do a good job on both the midterm as well as the final assessment. The midterm assessment covers what we will begin covering next week up to when the midterm is due. The final is not cumulative, so it will just cover from after you submit the midterm to the end of the course. Again, I guess if you want to call it open book, it's open book because you can use lecture notes, you can use material from Kettle, you can use readings from the classics textbook, from our discussions here in class. All of that is fair game for you to answer these questions on the assessments. So the midterm and final assessments are both worth 100 points. Since there are 5 scenarios with 2 questions for each scenario, you have a total of 10 questions on each assessment, 10 points for each question. 10 times 10 gives you the 100 points for the midterm, and then 100 points for the final. Again, these assessments will make a lot more sense once they become available, and I will go over them each scenario in class to make sure everyone understands what I'm asking in this scenario and everyone is comfortable with the assessment before you go and complete it. But you'll have 2 weeks to complete the midterm, and you'll have 2 weeks to complete the final. Then our last set of assignments are these Canvas essays. This is the asynchronous component of this class. We have 5 graded Canvas essays, and each of those Canvas essays will be worth 30 points. So what I do is I provide you with a prompt. So let me just scroll down and show you. I think I have them in the syllabus still. Let's go down to here. Here you go. Here are the Canvas essays. Sometimes I call them discussion board. Canvas essay, discussion board, those two terms I use interchangeably with each other. But here's your first Canvas essay prompt. So in this first Canvas essay, your response should be well written. Most responses are, I say 3 to 4 paragraphs. Anywhere from 2 to 4, I think is probably sufficient. In Federalist Paper number 10, and we'll be reading Federalist Paper number 10 for the second half of class next week, Madison, as in James Madison, cautioned us against the negative effects of factions. Do you believe that America is more factionalized and divided than in the past? Please provide examples to support your position. What can be done to control the effects of factions more effectively? This essentially is based upon your reading of Federalist Paper number 10, which you'll be reading next week, where Madison talks to us about we can't get rid of factions, so we have to control them. We're going to have all these different groups that have different opinions and different wants, needs, and desires. And so in a compound republic, what we do is we balance faction against faction. So this discussion post requires that you think about how factionalized we are today as a society, and then what you can suggest that we could do to try and better control the effects of these different groups that are battling against each other to try and get accomplished what they want to get accomplished in the policy process. So for each one of these Canvas essays, you'll have this initial prompt. You'll then respond to that in 2 or 3 paragraphs. Then, in addition to that response to my initial prompt, you also need to respond to 2 of your classmates. So you'll have a grand total of 3 posts per week for these Canvas essays. Now, as you respond to your classmate responses can obviously be a lot shorter than your response to my initial prompt. So we're taking a look at maybe a paragraph for each response to a classmate. So an initial response and then responses to 2 of your classmates for a total of 3 posts for each one of these Canvas essay requirements. In terms of the due dates for these Canvas essay requirements, I am having them due. As you can see, I've got all the due dates listed there on the syllabus for you, but let's just scroll up for 1 second. For your Canvas essays, you can see that Canvas essay number 1 due by midnight on February 3rd. That means all 3 of those posts for that Canvas essay number 1 must be posted no later than 11:59 p.m. on February the 3rd. I do recommend that if you can, post your initial post earlier in the week because that then allows your colleagues to have something to respond to. If we all wait until February 3rd to post our initial post, we're all going to be scrambling to try and read and respond to posts, and it really kind of becomes a mess at midnight on February 3rd. So if you can post your initial response earlier in the week, that is helpful, but it will not be considered late until after midnight on 11:59 p.m. on February the 3rd. As you are completing these Canvas essays, do remember to proofread them well. A nice strategy that a lot of people like to use is they compose it in a Word or whatever program you'd like, then copy and paste the response into the discussion area. That allows you to proofread it, allows you to spell check it before you're actually posting it. So do make sure they're not just extemporaneous musings, as I call them. Make sure that they are proofread, that they're well written, and they are insightful. Of the 30 points, 20 of those points will be assigned to your response to my initial prompt, and then 5 points for each response to a classmate, again, for a grand total of 30 points for each one of those Canvas essays. Questions on the Canvas essays requirements?
So are we just writing 3 to 4 paragraphs for the Canvas essays, or are we also providing APA citations?
That's a great question. If you need to cite outside information, then do cite it in APA with APA citations. You are not required to use outside information. You just use the information that you have learned in the class. If you are using information, for example, number one, for Canvas essay number one from Federalist 10, you don't have to give me a APA citation for that because we all have access to Federalist 10. We're all reading Federalist 10. So any course materials that you are using to answer the discussion prompt, you don't have to cite those. Only if you're going through the library and using outside research, which you are not required to do.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. No, that's a great question. So those are the assignments we're going to be doing in the class. And so when you add it all up, you got 5 of these, 30 points each for 150 points. You add it all up, and we have 360 points over the course of our 8 weeks together. The grading scale is your basic 90, 80, 70, 60 type of grading scale. If you are new here to Cal State Long Beach, we do not have pluses and minuses, much to my chagrin. We've had 3 different votes in my 25 years here as to whether or not to implement a plus or minus system. Each time it's gone down to defeat. Faculty are very much in favor of pluses and minuses. Students are very much opposed to pluses and minuses. There are more students than there are faculty, and so therefore students win, and we don't have plus minuses. I personally like a plus minus system in a graduate program because we have a great deal of grade contraction in public administration programs, and we're really in any graduate program. Because at the graduate level, most of our grades and most of our classes are going to congregate around the A and the B level. And so pluses and minuses, I like them because I can distinguish between someone who got a 99% in the class and someone who got a 90% in the class. However, we don't have that here, and so the 99% and the 90% will both get A's. I do have a 1% flexibility rule, and so if you turn everything in on time and do what I like to call the old graduate school effort, then you'll get that 1% boost up to the next higher grade. So if you finish with 89%, you turned everything in on time, I'll boost that up to 90% and you'll get an A for the course. Grades, I'll tell you, and this is not to have you rest on your laurels or anything, but the grades here in the 500 course, regardless of instructor, tend to trend relatively high. And it's because this is an introductory course, and so you don't really get into the research papers and a lot of those higher order types of assignments until you get into future courses in the program. So for the most part, we all congregate around that A and that high B level, and that's usually the way in which it works. And I'm absolutely fine with that. I don't care what my course GPA is. All I care is that this course is preparing you for success in the MPA program as well as success working in the public and nonprofit sectors. If we accomplish that, I'm a happy camper regardless of what the class GPA ends up being. I have some grading rubrics. They're just very basic grading rubrics. You can read through those on your own to kind of tell you what I'm kind of looking for on these different assignments. But those are the assignments that we are going to be completing in this class. Again, we are not research heavy in this class. We are an introductory course. Don't get used to not doing research because in your future courses, you will have to do research for a lot of your policy analysis papers and your program evaluations. You will have to do research for those. This is just kind of one of those unusual types of introductory courses. How about our course schedule? What are we covering and when are we covering those topics? Obviously, this week, our first class session is just an introduction. We're reviewing the syllabus right now. We will talk about the introduction to the MPA program itself, reiterate some of those things you got at the orientation, and then we'll talk about the mission and the values of the MPA program, as well as the importance of NASPA accreditation. So it's very much an introductory type of session. Next Tuesday, we're going to have kind of a 2-part class session. In that, in the first part of the class, Kelly Janicek from the University Library will be in our Zoom session, and she will take you through a discussion of how to do research in public administration, utilizing a lot of the databases provided by the library. Kelly Janicek has been with the university for many years. I think she's been here as long as I have, if not maybe a little bit longer. She knows everything there is to know about doing research in public administration. She is our public administration disciplinary librarian. I get her to come into each one of our 500 sections every semester to give you that introduction into how to use the library and how to do public administration oriented research. So Kelly will talk to you about that through about the first hour and a half of class next week. She also likes to talk to you about APA formatting, and so she'll take you through the basics of using APA. APA Style Guide is the manual that we use here in the MPA program. We made that decision quite a while ago. Back probably, I was here maybe 3 or 4 years, where we realized that everyone was using different style manuals. So we came to the conclusion we're all going to use APA, and we've been using APA ever since. If you've used APA before, you know that APA 7th is a little, for lack of a better term, funky when it comes to its citations. In that, in the citations, you don't capitalize every word in the article title. You italicize only journal titles and not article titles. So it's a little unusual. She'll take you through a discussion of APA formatting so that you'll have that APA background that you can use in future courses. So Kelly will do the first half of the class next week. Then we'll take a break. And then after the break, I will talk to you about American government. We will go through the founding principles of American government and American political culture. We'll talk about how we limit power through separation of powers and federalism and what those limitations mean for us as public administrators. We will talk about different eras of federalism. We'll talk about the meaning of power in politics and basically provide you with a refresher on American government because everything we do in public administration, we typically do within public organizations. Public organizations are located within government institutions. So it's important for us to understand those government institutions in order to understand public organizations, in order to understand what we do as public administrators. So for next week, the readings that you'll be doing, the Articles of Confederation, I have a link on there for the articles, the Constitution, and then founding documents such as Federalist Papers. And the ones we're really going to focus on will be Federalist Paper number 10 and 39. So there are 85 Federalist Papers. And I have a link to a website that will take you to all 85 Federalist Papers. You don't have to read all 85 of them. The ones I'm asking that you look at are number 10 and number 39. Number 10 because that will form the basis for your first Canvas essay. And then number 39 because I think it is the best defense of the Constitution in any of the 85 Federalist Papers. So again, your readings for next week, Articles of Confederation, Constitution, and Federalist Papers 10 and 39. The links are available on our Canvas site, so you won't have to get readings out of the books. This will straight be from the Canvas site. Assignment that you then have coming up for next week is just an introductory post. This is an ungraded discussion board post where you will just simply share whatever you're comfortable sharing about yourself. You know, why you're in the program, if you want to share what you do for a living, whatever you feel comfortable sharing, just share in a little brief paragraph introduction, just so we can all kind of get to know each other. You're probably going to be running into each other in future courses as well. And so it's good for you to kind of get to know each other now here in your first course in the program. So just whatever you are comfortable sharing, quick paragraph. It's not graded, just, for sake of information. So if you could do that between now and next week's class, that would be excellent. So please do that. The initial skills self-assessment will be your first real written assignment. That I don't think we have due until February the 3rd. Then the following week on February the 3rd, we will talk about accountability and ethics, and we will pay particular attention to the idea of the public service and what it means to be a public servant and the higher accountability and ethical expectations that are attached to working in the public sector. I will show you the American Society for Public Administration's Code of Ethics, and we'll walk through that. We'll talk about different approaches to ethics. We'll talk about different categories of ethics. We'll do all of that on February 3rd. And then if we have time remaining, which I think we will, we'll probably break up into breakout rooms, and I'll have an assignment that we can do ungraded, but just an assignment we can do in each one of our breakout rooms related to accountability and ethics. I kind of like to use breakout rooms as frequently as I can in this course. It's your first course in the program, so allowing you to work together in breakout rooms has two benefits. One benefit is it means you don't have to listen to me for 2 hours and 45 minutes, and that's a great benefit. The second benefit is you get to know each other a little bit because, again, you'll be seeing each other in future courses. Then in week 4, on February 10th, we will get into the differences between public and private organizations, the difference between working in the private sector versus working in the public sector. There is, in addition to chapter 2 out of the Kettle textbook, I will highlight that article by Graham Allison. Whenever you see these articles with the numbers behind them, that means these are articles that are in the classics textbook. Those are the ones that are in Chaffetz. So the chapters are out of Kettle. The numbers, like 36, Graham Allison, that is out of the classics text. I do ask that for that week, you do read the Graham Allison article. It's one of my favorite articles. I think he does an excellent job in that article, really showing us the similarities versus the differences of public versus private sector organizations. Then in week number 5, on February 17th, we'll really get into the heart of what is public administration. Is public administration an academic discipline, or is it merely just a field of study within another academic discipline, and so what? And we'll start looking at the theoretical perspectives that have been developed on how we study public organizations in the study of public administration. So this is where we really get into our introduction to the field and the study of public administration. So you can see your readings there are a couple of chapters out of Kettle, and then the readings out of the classic text, Woodrow Wilson, Max Weber, and Mary Parker Follett. Then in time remaining that day, we will then get into the policy process. We'll talk about decision making and how we make public policies. We'll talk about how we make our organizations effective, how we make our policies, and how we make our programs effective. And you'll see the assigned readings associated with that as well. Week number 6, February 24th, we will get into the management of human resources. So we'll talk about public employment, why we have the system of public employment we have today, where that system came from. You see your readings there, and then we'll also talk about how we manage human resources in modern public organizations. Then in our final Zoom session on March 3rd, if everything goes well, we'll talk about managing fiscal resources and how we manage budgets, how we manage public taxpayer money. And that will then round out all the information that we typically cover in this class. We get all that done by March 3rd. Then on March 10th, we will not have to have a Zoom session, and instead you'll just spend that time completing your final assessment. Now, let me just back up for 1 second. And as we go through this schedule, let me just show you. As we go through the schedule, you may notice that what we'll do once we get past our discussion of public administration on February 17th, we move into then this idea of organizations and how we study public organizations. That will then foreshadow for you information that you'll be covering later on in PPA 660 organization theory. On February 24th, when we talk about managing human resources, that will foreshadow PPA 577 human resource management. When we talk about managing fiscal resources, that will foreshadow information from public budgeting PPA 555. When we cover public policy and programs, we will be foreshadowing information from PPA 670 policy analysis and PPA 696 research methods. So that's kind of how in the second part of the course, we will turn our attention to kind of giving you a sampler plate, kind of a buffet of a lot of the information that you'll be getting exposed to in each one of those 5 core courses. So like I said, we not only prepare you to study public administration, but we prepare you to study the specific core courses that you'll be covering here in the MPA program. For your one-stop shopping, I've listed for you all of the due dates for assignments in the class. These are also listed in our Canvas site. So your initial skills self-assessment will be due on February 3rd. Draft advancement to candidacy due the week after that on February the 10th. Midterm assessment due on February the 24th, and it will be made available 2 weeks before it is due on Canvas. And then your final assessment due by March the 10th. Again, made available 2 weeks before it's due on March the 10th. The due dates for all these assignments are then, as always, 11:59 and 59 seconds p.m. on those days. You know when our Zoom sessions are, so those are listed there just for your reference. Same link we're using for each one of our Zoom sessions. And then here are the due dates for your Canvas essays. Introduction, which is ungraded. Please, if you can have that done by next week, that would be great. Then Canvas essay number 1 on the 3rd, 2 is on the 10th, 3 is on the 17th, 4 is on the 24th, and number 5 is due then on March the 3rd. But again, I've got all those dates in our Canvas site. And so you'll see on the right side of Canvas, I'll show you in a second, you'll see a to-do list. And in that to-do list, whenever an assignment is due within a week or two, it'll then pop right up there on the to-do list, just kind of as a reminder for what is due and when it is due. The rest of the information on the syllabus is kind of the boilerplate information that we include in all of our university syllabi. My policy on late assignments is there is a 10% penalty for each 24-hour period that an assignment is late. I do understand that life can intervene, and so if life or work intervenes, I just ask that you reach out to me in advance and let me know, and then we can usually find a way to avoid that late penalty. But the late penalty is a 10% penalty per day that it is late. Everything is done electronically, obviously, because this is an online course. And so we have drop boxes for the assignments like the assessments and the initial skills self-assessment, as well as the draft advancement form, all located on our Canvas site. I'll show you that in a second. And then your discussion board posts will be done directly in the relevant discussion forum, which I'll also show you in a second. So everything is done electronically. Policy on withdrawals. I do not withdraw anyone from the course. And so if someone is not coming to the Tuesday night sessions and they're not submitting assignments, I'm not going to withdraw you from the course. You'll have to withdraw yourself. So if you're going to drop out of the course for whatever reason, make sure that you go through the formal withdrawal process. If you don't go through the formal withdrawal process, then at the end of our semester together on March the 10th, when I am putting in grades, if I do not have any grades from a student to base a final grade on, the only grade I am allowed to give that student according to university policy is what's known as a WU grade. WU stands for an unauthorized withdrawal. Why it's not UW, I don't know, but it's not. It's WU, and that's an unauthorized withdrawal. You want to make sure you keep WUs off of your transcript. Because what I found when I was department chair is once a WU goes on to somebody's transcript, it is next to impossible to get it off that transcript. And WUs, for grade point average calculation purposes, count as an F. So they're equivalent to an F in the course. So just keep that in mind. Try not to get a WU. If you have to drop out of the course, go through the formal withdrawal process. Policy on incompletes. I typically do not give incompletes because they're kind of a slippery slope. That technically what an incomplete will do is it will provide you with an entire calendar year to then complete the assignments and earn a grade in the course. What happens is that, as always, life intervenes. And so people forget that they have an incomplete. I forget they have an incomplete. A year passes, then an incomplete then turns into an F. So it's usually good to try and avoid incompletes. Now, if there's some of the most extraordinary circumstances that do occur this semester, and I hope that they will not, but if they do, make sure to reach out to me and we can talk about an incomplete. University policy requires that in order to qualify for an incomplete, the student must have already completed 2/3 of the coursework before they can qualify for an incomplete grade. Students with disabilities, that all flows through BMAC, which is the Bob Murphy Access Center. BMAC does a wonderful job of reaching out to faculty. So if you have a disability that needs to be documented, make sure you document it through BMAC. BMAC will then send me an email with the accommodations, and then you and I can talk about those accommodations. Usually it's not an issue in a class like this because we don't have timed examinations. And so we don't have to worry about the examination accommodation. If, however, you have an accommodation where we require an extra 1 or 2 days on assignments, just reach out to me and let me know what you need, and that all then flows through BMAC. And again, I can't speak highly enough of BMAC. I have their email on here as well as their phone number and their location over in the new Student Success Center, room number 110. Attendance policy. This is a graduate program. And as a graduate program, it is up to you whether or not you attend our Zoom sessions on Tuesday. Do you understand, though, in our Zoom sessions, we cover information that's not covered in the book. We also have discussions in the Tuesday evening sessions. We'll do some breakout rooms. If you're not here, you missed that information. So you're highly encouraged to be here so you can participate in discussions on our Tuesday evening sessions. Technology requirements, obviously you've met those because you're here in class tonight, so you've got those taken care of. Use of AI. You probably read before you joined Cal State Long Beach that the Cal State system has decided that it will be the world's first AI university system. So Cal State is trying to embrace the growth of artificial intelligence. The university allows individual faculty to develop and communicate their own AI policies for the respective courses. My AI policy is that generative AI tools, the use of that will not be permitted in the course for the following activities. Cannot be used to impersonate you in the classroom context, such as using it to compose discussion board prompts, your Canvas essays, any other assignment, any type of writing assignment, writing sentences or paragraphs for any class assignments, not allowed for any of that. What I do allow you to use AI for is, and it's not really that relevant here in this class, but for brainstorming. I think it can be a really good brainstorming tool. So if you're trying to brainstorm an idea for a policy paper, it could be very useful in that regard. If you're trying to brainstorm an idea for a program evaluation in 696, it could be useful in that regard as well. I do have a link there for the university's policy on AI, and so feel free to go and follow that link at your convenience and read the university's policy. Changes to the syllabus. I don't anticipate a whole lot of changes to the syllabus. Really, the only changes we typically make will be if we are behind on information, we have to take information from one week and push it to the next week. That's pretty much the only change that we will need to make. Then I'll let you read through all the rest of the boilerplate information here in the syllabus that's very similar to the information that you'll see in pretty much any graduate syllabus that you see, at least throughout a department, if not across the entire campus. So that's the syllabus. That is the course. I hope that this works well. Let me go ahead and share out to you our Canvas site. Hopefully you can see our Canvas site. Let me put it in student view. If for some reason you don't see the Canvas site, please let me know, but hopefully you're able to see it. This is our Canvas site for PPA 500. It shows that little pink bar because I have it in student view, so it should show pretty much what you see in student view as opposed to instructor view. And let me just walk you through some of the different features of this, then we'll take a break, and then we'll finish up our program introduction after our break. But let me do this for just a couple of minutes. I have our link, which obviously everyone got access to here in the opening announcement. On the left side here, you see My Textbooks Hub. If you haven't been here yet, this is what will then take you to your digital materials. So if you click on My Textbooks Hub, you'll see it will then take you to our 2 assigned textbooks for the course. We have the Kettle textbook here and then the Classics textbook over here. You'll see that you are automatically registered for day 1 digital access. If you want to opt out, you have to opt out no later than 11:59 p.m. on February the 3rd. But this is where you will obtain your course readings. And so let me move some stuff out of the way. I've got a lot of boxes open here. So you see, to just read it, you just click on Read Now, and then it opens up digitally for you. So you have access to that already here on day number 1. Access to the syllabus. Syllabus is right there. I organized the course into modules. And so each week we have a different module. There's your syllabus again. And then module 1, that is tonight. Program introduction slides that we're going to be using the second half of class tonight. Program mission slides are also there for you. When you're ready to post your brief introduction, you just click on that link for introduction, opens it up for you, hit reply, copy and paste your response into that, and that will then post it directly into the discussion board. I ask that you copy and paste directly into discussion board as opposed to providing a link to a file. When you provide a link to a file, most of your classmates are not going to follow that link, and so they won't in turn read your posting. So please put the posting directly into discussion board. So that's where you'll do your introductory post. Let's go back to our modules here. Then I have the departmental website. This is where you'll get access to all the advancement to candidacy forms. So the general advancement form, the one for urban affairs, and the one for the option in public works. And so just click that link and you'll see links for each one of those advancement forms. Week number 2, we'll do American government. Here are the slides we'll be using in the second half of class next week. There's a website for the articles, website for the Constitution, website for all the Federalist Papers. We'll just really be looking at numbers 10 and 59. To complete your Canvas essay, you just click right there, and the same type of thing as completing your introduction. You complete it right there. For your initial skills self-assessment, when you click there, you'll see here is a initial skills self-assessment with the arrow to download. So you can download it directly and then fill it out, save it, and then click upload and upload it directly. That's how you'll be submitting your assignments in the class. And all pretty intuitive and straightforward. Here's week number 3, module 3. Again, the slides, your draft advancement to candidates form is there again as well. If you like to get it there instead of getting it through the departmental website, I have a separate link there. It's the same thing. And then Canvas essay number 2. Week number 4, slides, Canvas essay number 3. Week number 5, slides, Canvas essay number 4. Week number 6, slides, Canvas essay number 5. And then week number 7, the slides, and then finally your final assessment link for week 8. So your midterm assessment is right here in week 5. Same type of deal for submission. It's locked now, so in Student View you can't see it. As soon as it becomes unlocked on February 10th, it will then magically pop open for you. And same thing here with the final. I think I have this one locked until February 24th. On February 24th, it'll then pop open for you as well. So on February 10th, I'll talk you through and walk you through the midterm assessment in class. On February 24th, I'll walk you through the final assessment in class as well. Alternative, if you want to get your grades right there. If you alternatively want to see all the discussions at once, you can click on discussions, and there are links here for do each one of the 5 discussions if you prefer doing that. We don't have any quizzes in the class. And if you want to see all the assignments, you can click on assignments, and there are all the assignments that you'll be doing in your time here in the class. That's pretty much the entire Canvas site. Again, I try and keep it bare bones while still providing you with the information, the resources that you need to be successful. I know some of you have already been here undergrad, so this is old news for you. If you're brand new to Canvas, feel free to tool around the Canvas site. If you have any questions about where anything is, feel free to send me an email. I'm happy to kind of give you a guided tour if necessary. So I think that is our entire introduction to the PPA 500 course. So are there any questions at this point in time about the course, its contents, anything course related? Everybody ready for a break? I am. Let's go ahead and take a break until, let's say, come back at 5:30. When we come back at 5:30, we'll then turn our attention to an introduction to the MPA program. And we'll go over some of the information you probably covered at the orientation, give you some tips and tricks about being successful here in the MPA program, introduce you to the mission of the program, the public service values that underpin that mission, as well as the universal required competencies that you can expect to learn once you graduate from the MPA program. So we'll get to all that after our break. So take a break, come on back at 5:30, and we'll jump into an introduction to the program itself. Okay, it is 5:30, so we are back. I don't think that this discussion will take us the rest of the evening, so we'll probably have a little bit of a short night tonight, but Let's just go through some of the information that was covered at the orientation for those who were not able to be there. Also, if you were at the orientation, it's still good to kind of hear this information sometimes a second time. So, oops, we have that there. Okay, whoops, just went way too far. Okay, the MPA program itself, as you probably have already heard, is an NASPA accredited program. We have a current accreditation that runs through 2030. Our last accreditation visit was in 2023. Our stateside program has been continuously accredited since, I believe, 1988, I want to say. It was one of the first accredited programs in California. I think that NASPA first started accrediting programs in 84, I believe, and we were accredited in 88. Our distance learning program was first accredited in 1999. So both of our programs are NASPA accredited and have been so for a very long time. NASPA accreditation is a very long and difficult process. Dr. Butts can tell you that because he took us through our last accreditation process. NASPA is very picky about who they accredit and who they do not accredit. So being accredited is a big deal. We'll talk about that a little bit more later on. We are a very interdisciplinary faculty. Public administration is a very interdisciplinary program, and we are an interdisciplinary faculty. Dr. Butts is our department chair currently. Dr. Matthews used to be our graduate advisor. Now Dr. Zhao is our graduate advisor, and I need to change that. But Dr. Zhao serves as a graduate advisor for the department. I run the distance learning MPA program. Then we also have Dr. Baber. Dr. Baber teaches primarily organization theory. He is in the faculty early retirement program, and so he only teaches half time for the next couple of years. And so you may or may not run into Dr. Baber in your classes. Dr. Martin has been here for almost 25 years as well, I believe. So he's a longtime faculty member. As I mentioned, Dr. Zhao is our graduate advisor now. And our newest faculty member is Dr. Richard Nkrumah from the University of Nebraska. He's been with us since last spring and just received his PhD. So some of our faculty members are political scientists. Some of them have their degrees in public administration. Others have their degrees in organization theory and behavior. And so we are very much an interdisciplinary type of faculty. You know the program requirements, the core courses, this course, 555, 577, 660, 670, and 696. Then your final core courses will be those two sections of 697 directed research, in which you will be completing your 5 capstone case studies, your final skills self-assessment, and then submitting your student learning portfolio. And we'll talk more about the portfolio in just a couple of minutes. In addition to those core courses, you then have to complete 5 electives. Those electives you'll be filling out on your advancement to candidacy form. As I said, you can take some elective courses outside the department, but you really need to talk to Dr. Butts or Dr. Zhao first to make sure that those departments are accepting students from outside their departments. I know the College of Business, a lot of their programs tend to be very heavily impacted, and so therefore it's difficult to take courses in the College of Business. Some other programs have very small graduate programs like criminal justice, so sometimes they don't have a whole lot of courses offered to select from. So you can take from outside the department, but the vast majority of MPA students will take their electives within the department itself. And we have a lot of elective courses. We have leadership, employee-employer relations, seminar in urban affairs. There are electives in analytical skills development, in microeconomics, in accounting, in intergovernmental relations, a lot of different electives that you can choose from. If you have already attended and earned credit in another regionally accredited MPA program, there is a possibility that you can transfer in up to 9 credit hours or 3 courses into the Long Beach program. If you've earned credits in another program and you're interested in transferring those credits into our program, you'll need to talk to Dr. Zhao about that. Typically, credits that are transferred in get transferred in as electives as opposed to required courses. The university requires that you complete all of your core courses in residency here at the university. As we've already talked about, you will need to advance the candidacy. You'll be doing that no earlier than your second semester in the program after you've completed 2 courses, 6 units, and you have a cumulative GPA of 3.0. A cumulative 3.0 GPA means that you are in good academic standing. Any cumulative GPA below 3.0 means that you are then on academic probation. So it's very important to watch that cumulative GPA. Make sure that you keep it 3.0 or above. Advancing candidacy, you have to do that at least one semester before the semester in which you plan to graduate. So if you're planning on graduating in spring 2027, you're going to have to advance the candidacy no later than fall of 2026. Once you have advanced the candidacy, then the second administrative step will be to petition to graduate. You have to petition to graduate for spring or summer graduation no later than the preceding October 15th. If you want to graduate in fall or winter term, then you would have to petition to graduate no later than March the 1st. If you miss those deadlines, then you'll have to submit a late petition to graduate, and then you'll have to pay an additional fee on top of the normal petition fee. Petition to graduate is something that you do with Enrollment Services. Enrollment Services has a link on their website to petition to graduate, and that's something you can do directly on their website. But again, you cannot petition to graduate until you have at least advanced the candidacy. If you haven't advanced the candidacy yet, they're going to deny your petition to graduate. When you petition to graduate, that then signals Enrollment Services to run a grad check. So they'll go through and make sure that you've completed all the courses that you have listed on your advancement to candidacy form. The natural question a lot of people will ask is, well, if I fill out my advancement to candidacy form in my second semester in the program, and then if one of my courses is not being offered and I have to switch courses, is that a major problem? And the answer, fortunately, is no. That if you do have to change a course from your original advancement form, there's a very simple process known as a program change. And so what will happen is whenever Enrollment Services does a grad check, they will send an email to both the PPA office as well as Dr. Zhao if the courses you've taken do not line up with what's listed on your advancement form. At that point in time, Kathy Allen in our office will then submit a program change form for you, and that will then take care of the discrepancy. So don't worry if you're not taking all the courses that are listed on your advancement form. That's something we can certainly take care of on the back end. Also, those semesters and years that you're listing on your advancement form, those are not that important because if you end up say I'm going to take 697 in spring of 2027 and you end up taking it in fall of 2027, Enrollment Services doesn't care. They just care that you're actually taking 697. They don't really care what semester you are doing it. We do in the department because you have to have all your cores done before 697, but Enrollment Services doesn't care about the semester or the year. As I mentioned, the final core courses you'll be taking will be those 2 sections of PPA 697 in which you'll be completing your 5 case studies, you'll be completing your final skills self-assessment, and then submitting your student learning portfolio. The 5 case studies reflect the 5 core content areas in the program. So you'll have a budgeting case study, a human resources case study, an organization theory case study, a policy analysis case study, and then a research methods case study. When you came into the program, you selected an option, as we had mentioned before. The vast majority of students, well over 95% of students, are in the general MPA option. Some people have selected the option in Urban Affairs. Some people selected the option in Public Works. If you're in the option in Urban Affairs, you have one additional core course that you have to take, which is PPA 610, Seminar in Urban Affairs. And then instead of 5 electives, you'll only have 4 electives. If you selected the option in Public Works, your additional core class will be PPA 554, Public Works Management. And then again, you'll only have 4 instead of the 5 electives. But either way, regardless of what option you're in, it's still a 39-unit requirement to get your MPA degree. Then the department also offers certificates. I'm sure you heard about this in the orientation. These certificates are basically add-ons to your MPA degree. The most popular certificate by far is the Certificate in Employee-Employer Relations. If you are interested in working in the field of human resource management, this is a good certificate to add on. And I've got a link there in the website to take you to the catalog to show you exactly what courses you need to take to get this employee-employer relations certificate. The nice thing about the certificates is you can add on a certificate without increasing your 39 unit requirement. So you can do it all within the 39 units because you can double count some of those courses to your MPA degree and to your certificate program. But those are the three certificates that are currently on the books in the department. I know that Dr. Butts is currently revamping the public sector financial management certificate because it's been very difficult in the past for our students to get into those college of business courses that were required as part of the certificate. So I know he's in the process of revamping that. So if you're interested in the financial management certificate, you'll want to talk to Dr. Butts and see kind of what the status is of that revamping of that certificate. Those are the certificates that we currently offer in the program. We used to have an urban executive management certificate. We got rid of that because we already have an option in urban affairs. And we also used to have a transportation policy certificate, but we kind of farmed that out to the College of Professional and Continuing Education because they had a similar certificate program. So we kind of combined the two and allowed them to deliver that. So those are two certificates that we no longer offer here in the MPA program. Now, when you get to the end of your program and you have completed those 5 cases in 697, the next thing you'll do after you do your final skills self-assessment is to submit what's called your student learning portfolio. So let's just recap what that student learning portfolio is very quickly. It is meant to be a record of what you have completed in the program, kind of a professional journal that will serve as a visual assessment tool so that you can assess the types of skills that you acquired while you were in the MPA program, and faculty can also assess them as well. Typically, what we do every year, or when I was department chair, what we would do every year is I would select a random sample of student learning portfolios that were submitted, remove all the identifiers from those portfolios, and then we would do an assessment of the documents within those portfolios to serve as another instance of assessment of student learning outcomes. So it's another layer in our assessment system. Now, also the student learning portfolio is useful for a lot of people in terms of getting jobs and getting promoted. Because whenever you go into an interview and you're asked the question, are you able to conduct a budget analysis? And you say, yes, I am. That's helpful. But if you're able to say, yes, I am, and here's the budget analysis that I completed in my public budgeting course, that carries a lot more weight because the employer can actually see you're not just saying you can do it, but you have actually done it as part of your coursework. So the student learning portfolio, which we put in place nearly 20 years ago, is still serving us very well, and we're still using it, but we have streamlined it. So it's much easier to do today than it was when we first implemented it way back in 2007. The student learning portfolio currently consists of 3 different parts. Part 1 of the student learning portfolio will be the initial skills self-assessment that you are turning in this class in 2 weeks. So make sure to keep a copy of that initial skills self-assessment. And then also the final skills self-assessment that you will do in PPA 697 after you've completed your 5 case studies. So these bookend self-assessments from here in 500 and from 697, those assignments get included into what we call part 1 of the student learning portfolio. Part 2 of the student learning portfolio takes a little bit more explanation. Part 2 of the portfolio will consist of what we call the pre and post instructional assignments from each of your required core courses. With the exception of this course, there's no pre and post instructional assignment in this course, and there's also no pre and post instructional assignment in 697. So in each of your other core courses, budgeting, HR, org theory, policy, and research methods, in each of those courses, you will complete as part of your assignments a pre and a post instructional assignment. The pre-instructional assignment is something that you will submit in the beginning of the semester, usually within the first 2 to 3 weeks of the course beginning. Then at the end of the course, you will submit a post-instructional assignment, which is very similar to the pre-instructional assignment. The difference is in the pre-instructional assignment, you complete that without using any information from the class, just what you currently know about the topic. At the end of the course, you complete the post-instructional assignment using all the information that you've acquired and the skills you've acquired in that course. Let me give you an example. When I would teach public budgeting, my pre-instructional assignment for public budgeting would require that students get a copy of a city budget, review the city budget, and then answer 8 simple questions regarding that budget. Simple questions such as, does the revenues, what are the top 3 sources of revenues? What are the top 3 areas of expenditure? What budget format does this budget represent? And they would answer 8 simple questions using only the information they currently know about analyzing a budget. So if they literally had no experience analyzing a budget and were not capable of answering those questions, they could literally write, I do not have the information to answer this question. And that was acceptable because it was a pre-instructional type of assignment. That at the end of the course, they would repeat the exact same assignment using that same budget and answering those same 8 questions, but using all the information they had learned throughout the course of public budgeting. For that post-instructional assignment, it was no longer acceptable to say, I don't have the information, because now they do have the information. So the nice thing about the pre and post-instructional assignments is it allows you, as well as your instructor, to kind of gauge the learning and the skills that you have acquired throughout your time in their course. So all 5 of those core courses will have pre and post-instructional assignments. In part 2 of the learning portfolio, you'll just be putting those pre and post-instructional assignments into part 2. You don't have to modify them, revise them, just put them in as you submitted them to your instructor in that course. So it's important, again, that you hold on to those pre and post-instructional assignments so you'll have them to put into part 2 of your student learning portfolio. If you are in a core course and it doesn't say in the syllabus what is pre and post-instructional assignment, you should reach out to your instructor, because every instructor teaching every core course must note what is the pre and the post-instructional assignment so you know what to then include in part 2 of your portfolio. So that's then part 2 of the portfolio. The third and final part of the portfolio is simply the 5 case studies that you complete in 697 directed research. Again, you don't have to make any modifications to them. Just submit them in part 3 of the portfolio in the same format that you submitted them to your 697 instructor. So part 1, the initial and final skills self-assessment. So you'll start building your portfolio here in this class with the completion of that initial skills self-assessment. Part 2, the pre and post instructional assignments from those 5 core courses. And then part 3, the 5 case studies that you have completed in your 697 directed research course. This is all done electronically, so hold on to electronic copies of each one of those assignments that will go into the portfolio. When it comes time to submit the portfolio after you have completed your 5 cases and you finish your final skills self-assessment, you will then go into your OneDrive account. And again, this is at the end of the program, so you don't have to worry too much about this right now. But every student has a link in their single sign-on for OneDrive. Every student at the university has a OneDrive account. When you click on that OneDrive link, you open up your OneDrive account, you can then create folders for your portfolio. So you create a folder called Part 1, put in the initial and final skills self-assessment. Folder for Part 2, pre and post instructional assignments. Folder for Part 3, your 5 case studies. Upload all those documents into those 3 folders. You then share the portfolio electronically through OneDrive with your 697 instructor. The 697 instructor reviews it to make sure everything is in the portfolio and approves it. There are no approval forms you have to worry about getting signatures on like you had to in the past. We did away with all that. So you don't have to worry about running around getting signatures of approval from your individual instructors. The only approval you'll get will be from your 697 instructor, and that's all done electronically. Once your 697 instructor has reviewed your portfolio and deemed it to be complete, they will then notify the PPA office that you have completed your portfolio requirement. The PPA office will then contact Enrollment Services, and then you'll see on your unofficial transcript at the bottom, there'll be a notation that says graduate project complete. Whenever at the end of your program you see graduate project complete, that means your portfolio has been approved and the portfolio requirement has been satisfied. Now, the requirement in terms of submitting the student learning portfolio, if you're graduating in a fall semester, that portfolio must be shared with your PPA 697 instructor no later than December 1st. If you're graduating in the spring, that portfolio will need to be shared no later than May the 1st. And so those are the deadlines for that student learning portfolio. But again, this is all information that is helpful now, but will be very helpful when you get to the end of your program. So some important policies you need to be aware of so you can be successful in your time in the program. Again, you're advancing ASE at least one semester before the semester that you plan to graduate. It's always good advice to advance to candidacy early in your academic career. Typically, your second semester in the program is when you will probably be advancing to candidacy. The university also has what they call a 7-year rule. So from the time that you enter the university in your graduate program, the clock starts ticking, and you then have 7 years to complete your degree requirements and graduate. So you have a 7-year time frame to complete your master's degree. If for some reason you do not complete your master's degree within that 7-year period of time and you want to then reapply and come back into the program to complete, the only courses that will count toward completion of your degree will be courses that are less than 10 years old. Any course that is more than 10 years old will be considered to be expired and will not be revalidated. So obviously the advice is to complete your program within the 7-year time frame the university allots. The university also has a hard and fast policy of continuous enrollment. So if you applied and were admitted and you've joined the program here in spring of 2026, you are then required to maintain continuous enrollment in every fall and spring semester until you graduate. If there is winters and summers don't count. You don't have to take courses in the winter and the summer. But you do have to be registered in at least something in every fall and spring semester until you graduate. If for some reason you are not registered in any units in fall or spring, the university would consider that to be a break in enrollment. When students break enrollment, they are then required to reapply to the university and reapply to their graduate program as well. So that's something you want to avoid. If for some reason life intervenes and you're not able to take courses in a fall or spring semester, then the best thing to do is to fill out an education leave form. The university provides general education leaves pretty much without question, and they'll give you a couple of those if necessary. Beyond a couple of general education leaves, you would then have to move into a medical leave, and that then requires more documentation. But just a general education leave is something that you can fill out with Enrollment Services on their website. It stops the clock from ticking and allows you to take a semester off. So if you have to take a semester off, make sure you fill out that education leave form. You do not want to break enrollment. As I mentioned before, another university policy is you have to remain in good academic standing, which means maintaining a cumulative GPA of at least 3.0. If you fall below a 3.0 cumulative GPA, you will then automatically go on academic probation. As someone on academic probation, you would then have to meet with Dr. Zhao or Dr. Butts to put together a remediation plan to get you off of academic probation. If you're not able to get off academic probation in 2 semesters, you are then subject to academic disqualification. Now, the university has worked very hard to avoid disqualifying people. So they will work with the department and work with you to try and make sure you don't get disqualified. The best way to avoid the entire deal is just keep your GPA above 3.0. You're in good academic standing and you do not have to worry about things. There is a grade appeals process, and so for some reason you feel that an instructor awarded you arbitrary, capricious, or prejudicial grade that you did not deserve, there is a grade appeals process that you can pursue. We honestly, in our department, don't get very many grade appeals at all. In fact, I don't think we've had a grade appeal in the past 5 years. But if you do find yourself in a position for a grade appeal, the grade appeal process is a two-step process. The first step is informal, where the student meets with the instructor and tries to come to a resolution on the disagreement. If that informal resolution does not work, then that student can then file a formal grade appeal, which would go to Dr. Butts as our department chair, and then Dr. Butts does what he needs to do to start the formal process. If Dr. Butts then, in the formal process, is not able to come to a resolution between the student and the instructor, then we'll ask you for documentation, and the formal process then goes to the departmental grade appeals committee, then to the college grade appeals committee, and then to the university grade appeals committee. But again, it's a very rare process. Haven't seen it in the past 5 years in our department. Usually it's not an issue here in PPA. Also, very important to remember, I know I've mentioned it a couple times, I'll mention it again. All core courses must be completed before you'll be allowed to enroll in PPA 697. PPA 697 is registration by permit only. So you have to get a permit before you're able to register in 697. Also, there are two other courses in the program that are permit only. PPA 555 Public Budgeting and PPA 696 Research Methods. And you probably heard this at the orientation, but before you're able to register for PPA 555, the prerequisite is you will need to have completed a microeconomics course at the undergraduate level. If you do not have an undergraduate microeconomics course on your transcript, then another way that you can meet the prerequisite to get into 555 is by completing PPA 518. Microeconomics for Public Administrators. The great thing about PPA 518 to use as a prerequisite for public budgeting is it can also count as one of your electives. And so it's not an extra 3 units that you have to take. It can count toward one of your 5 electives. Then the other course that has permit only is PPA 696 Research Methods. In order to be admitted into research methods, you'll have to demonstrate that you've completed an undergraduate statistics course. If you don't have an undergraduate stats course on your transcript, you can always do PPA 517 Analytical Skills Development. That will get you into PPA 696 and also will be 3 units that you can count toward your 15-unit elective requirement. So make sure that before you register for 555 and 696, you have fulfilled those prerequisites. Honestly, most people who do not have those undergraduate courses on their transcript, they typically satisfy that prerequisite through either 517 or through 518, depending upon which of the 2 courses they are trying to get into. I think that is pretty much it for the kind of rehash of what you covered in the orientation. Any questions about this very brief introduction to the MPA program, or any additional questions you may have after you attended the orientation that we didn't cover here tonight? Then to continue and kind of wrap up our introduction to the MPA program, let's talk a bit about what the MPA program is all about, what our values are, what our mission statement is, and then what it means to be a NASPA accredited program. So you were probably introduced to the mission statement already at the orientation, but the mission of the Masters of Public Administration program at the Graduate Center for Public Policy Administration is to graduate a diverse, ethically, and equity-minded student population with the professional competencies and analytical tools necessary for leadership, policy, and management roles in public service, nonprofit, and community-based organizations. We revised this mission under the guidance of Dr. Butts the last time we went through reaccreditation back in 2023, and we revised it to broaden it. So now our mission really looks at leadership, policy, and management roles, and looks at them in both the public, nonprofit service, as well as in community-based organizations. We also broaden it to include diversity, ethically and equity-minded student population. Then through the promotion of excellence in professional public service, research, and education, graduates will advance the public good and make a positive impact at all levels of governance and management. This mission statement is predicated upon several public service values. And one of the things that NASPA requires of all of its accredited programs is that it clearly articulates its values, its principles, and its values. So our public service values are the following 7. Number 1, to enhance diversity in the faculty and the student population. Now, for our program, we're always very lucky to have a very diverse student population. We have one of the most diverse student populations of any MPA program in the entire country. Where we have been working is in terms of diversifying our faculty as well. Our last 2 full-time faculty hires were done through diversity hiring. The next faculty hire will also be done through a diversity process. So we're trying to enhance the diversity of our faculty to match, or at least somewhat resemble, the diversity of our student population. Number 2, embrace diversity in our teaching. So in our courses, we embrace a diversity of opinions, of backgrounds. It's a major element in all the courses that we offer in the program. Promoting the public interest, because after all, at the end of the day, this is what we are in public service for, is to serve the public interest. This is something we will focus very heavily on in this class, distinguishing between serving the public interest as opposed to serving private interests. Ethical behavior. NASPA allows its member programs to handle ethics in one of 2 ways. One way is that programs can develop their own standalone required ethics course. The second way is to essentially sprinkle ethics into your entire core curriculum. We have selected the latter because if we would have created a standalone required ethics course, it would have added an additional 3 units onto our 39-unit requirement and would have cost students more money. So instead, what we've done is we've sprinkled ethics throughout the entire curriculum. We'll have an entire week in this course focused solely on ethics and accountability. When you take public budgeting, you'll talk about the ethical implications of dealing with public taxpayer money. In 577, you'll talk about the ethics of dealing with human beings, and so on and so on. So ethics will be a core component within each one of your core courses in the program. Ethical behavior then obviously leads to integrity in the public service, a focus on social justice. This is a major tenet of what we call the new public administration approach. And so we'll talk about social justice in many of our courses. And then finally, professional competence. When you graduate from an MPA program, you should have the requisite competencies to be an effective leader and manager in public and private or nonprofit organizations. And this is something that NASPA is very much focused on. So much so that NASPA identifies 5 universal competencies that are required in every single NASPA accredited program. Those 5 universal competencies you see here on the screen. The first one is the ability to lead and manage in the public interest. Number 2, the competency to participate in and contribute to the policy process. Number 3, to analyze, synthesize, think critically, solve problems, and make evidence-informed decisions in a complex and dynamic environment. Number 4, to articulate, apply, and advance a public service perspective. And number 5, to communicate and interact productively and in culturally responsive ways with a diverse and changing workforce and society at large. Everyone who graduates from a NASPA accredited MPA program must be able to demonstrate that they have those 5 universal required competencies. What we have done in our program is we have created a matrix of our classes and the assignments that are provided in those classes to detail which courses and which assignments contribute to which of these 5 universal required competencies. So for example, when you take public budgeting, The primary competency that comes out of public budgeting is competency number 3, the ability to analyze, synthesize, think critically, solve problems, and make evidence-informed decisions. That is also a competency that comes out of PPA 696, research methods. Here in this class in PPA 500, the one that we focus primarily on is competency number 4, the ability to articulate, apply, and advance a public service perspective. We will spend a lot of time and a lot of effort really delineating between public and private service and what makes public service so much different, so that we have to have a completely different discipline to study public administration and the public service. So that's the one that we are going to really focus on here in PPA 500. So each of your courses will have assignments that will measure those 5 competencies that you have acquired in your time in the MPA program. I have actually seen some MPA programs that have used quizzes in their introductory course to make sure that everyone has memorized these 5 universal competencies. We don't do that to you. But I do want you to keep these in mind as you go through the program. And as you take your courses and do your assignments, really look at that syllabus and see, well, which of these competencies will I get by doing this assignment? Because by knowing that, it helps you answer my favorite question, which is the so what question. In a program like this, you are presented with a lot of different theories, a lot of different skills and scenarios. The big question is always, so what? How does it help us become effective public administrators? And so really tying everything to these competencies, I think will really help you answer that big so what question. I also, in addition to having a favorite question of so what, I also have my favorite answer in all my classes, and that's going to drive you crazy because that answer is, it depends. Public administration is very much contextual, and how you apply these competencies will depend upon the context of the situation in which you find yourself as a public administrator. One of the things that we will learn over the next 8 weeks is that public administration is a very complex environment. It's a very complex set of phenomena to study, but hopefully what we'll do through PPA 500 is kind of show you some rhyme and reason in terms of how we have learned to best study this complex phenomenon known as public administration. So just keep these universal required competencies in mind and know that graduating from a NASPA accredited program is really a big deal. It really is a distinction when you graduate from a NASPA accredited program as opposed to a non-accredited program. Because when you graduate from a NASPA accredited program, employers know that you have acquired these 5 universal required competencies. That is basically it for our introductory session. We've talked about the course requirements, and introduction to the MPA program, what it means to be NASPA accredited. I think it gives us a good starting point then for moving into actually covering our substantive information then for next week. For next week, again, if you can remember to do that introductory post. And then also for next week, please do read the Constitution, the Articles of Confederation, and Federalist Papers number 10 and 39. First half of class next week, we'll let Kelly Janisic talk to us about doing research in public administration for your future courses. And then part 2, we'll spend time talking about American government and what it means. Separation of powers and federalism, what they mean for what we do in public administration. Any questions or clarifications or anything about the course, the MPA program, anything to get us started here in PPA 500? Okay. Next week, when Kelly does her section of the course, she also likes to use breakout rooms. And so next week will be your first opportunity to do breakout rooms in this class. So she'll use breakout rooms. I don't think in the second half of class we'll have time to do that because there's a lot of information to cover. But by the time we get to week number 3, we will start really incorporating some more of those breakout rooms. So you don't have to listen to me sit here and talk to you for 2 hours and 45 minutes because no one wants to be subjected to that. Okay. Any questions you have about the course or anything at all, please feel free to send me an email. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. Otherwise, I look forward to reading your introductions, and then we'll talk library research and American government then in class next week. All right. Thanks, everyone. I'll have this recording up on our Canvas site no later than tomorrow morning if you would like to review it. Look forward to working with everyone. Have a great week. Welcome to the program, and I will see you then again next Tuesday. So take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.